Welcome everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd. We are streaming the City Council meeting live on City of Madison's YouTube channel. We are also archiving it. We have a very informative agenda tonight, and also one of our the best things that we like to do is swearing in a new police officer for City of Madison Police Department. Like all other meetings, we will begin by inviting you to stand and recite the Lord's Prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the meeting. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Patrick Tevenot.
Here.
Carla Kretz.
Here.
Lucy DeTillo.
Here.
Joshua Schaefer.
Here.
Joel Storms absent. Jim Bartlett.
Here.
And Josh Wilbur.
Here.
Thank you. Council, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from the October 7th, 2024 meeting? If so, we'll entertain a motion to approve minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes. I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now I'd like to invite our Madison Police Department Chief of Police, Sean Scudder, to introduce our new officer before the swearing in.
Good evening. This is Austin Ames. He comes to us from the West Lafayette Police Department. He started his career at the VV Police Department in 2016, right?
Yes.
Went to West Lafayette shortly after that, and then has now made the move back to Madison, where he's originally from. So we're super excited to have him and his years of experience. So he's the candidate we're always looking for. So I think he's going to be a good fit. We sat in on some training with him yesterday, and we were cracking jokes, and he's like, I'm going to fit in great here. And I really think he is. So we're super excited to have him. So.
Well, let's proceed with getting him
Absolutely.
officially on board. And Austin and I have known each other probably his entire life, so welcome back to Madison.
Thank you.
I never thought that you'd see me as mayor, and I never thought I'd see you as a Madison police officer either.
I didn't see myself as a cop either, but here we are. So.
Fate is very interesting, isn't it? And you're welcome to invite your family and your friend here, daughter. I'll ask you to come up here with me and raise your right hand, your family around you. Repeat after me. I, Austin Ames,
I, Austin Ames,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of a police officer for the City of Madison Police Department
of a police officer for the City of Madison Police Department
to the best of my ability
to the best of my
and
ability
according to law, so help me God.
and according to law, so help me God.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. Always fun, always exciting, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of this exciting meeting. All right. Council, taking things a little bit out of order, I think it's appropriate to go ahead and give the overview of the Main Street Corridor Resurfacing Project with Deputy Mayor Mindy McGee and our Director of Economic and Redevelopment, Tony Steinhardt. before we go into the official business. So we're happy to provide this overview of a project, and I'll give you kind of the high-level things. This Main Street project has been essentially a decade in the making already. Prior administration and council accepted a road transfer agreement in 2014 where approximately almost 4.5 miles of former State Highway 56 was transferred to the city of Madison, and we'll go into the details of it. The value proposition then was for NDOT to make improvements to the bridge approach, which was completed in the summer of 2020, which then the actual road transfer became effective at that date. Essentially about every day since 2020, we've been working on what this corridor means to us, but also how do we address the condition of this corridor, and then we'll go through the timeline and the investment we've already made, the investment we're about to make. And I'm very happy to report here that this is a major infrastructure project that will essentially occur over the course of the next 3 years. Will take a tremendous amount of supervision and energy and resources, but we have all of that figured out, and this is something we have discussed literally multiple times over the course of the last several years, and then more recently how it played into the capital planning aspect of our 2025 budget. So now I'll turn it over to Tony and Mindy.
Council, I'm going to stay here since Tony and I are both going to present through this. I think it'll be easier than trying to be up there and shift back and forth, but I just want to run through a timeline. Most of you know it already, but just as a reminder for everyone, and the mayor just went through some of it, but when the road transfer agreement was negotiated, there were no funds negotiated for maintenance of Main Street. We were just going to take it over as is, which is what happened. That happened in summer of 2020, and then we engaged with Ratio Architects and our engineers of record, Jacoby Toombs and Lawns, to work together with us on a Main Street master plan and put together a steering committee that helped look at all of that, interviewed people in the community, people that lived on Main Street, business owners, the steering committee themselves. We walked the footprint, talked about best practices, all of those things, and then that was all gathered together in a master plan. In September of 2020, this council sort of reaffirmed our gross weight limit restrictions on Main Street, which is the reductions for the heavy truck traffic, allowing for local deliveries and the grain, but otherwise keeping the heavier vehicles off of Main Street, which helps maintain the structure of the road. December of 2020, we started using CCMG to stabilize that road while we waited for funding to come into play from federal grants. There was a gap of 2, 3, 4 years, and that road was in such poor shape, we decided to use the stabilizing products to keep it in place until we could get to the mill and pave and a new surface. So what that included at a total cost of $686,000, of which we split 50-50 with the state, was the full depth repair of the entire half of the right lane of Hanover Hill. If you remember, that lane had a tire mark all the way up that was very not terribly safe to drive on, so we replaced that lane. We did a full depth repair of over 200 potholes and failed road excavations, and I think some people have forgotten how horrible it was to drive the full length of Main Street with all of those failed excavation and potholes, but we repaired all of those, cutting them out, refilling them, making them smooth to the surface. And then we put liquid road sealer over the entire surface to bind that asphalt and go down into the cracks and hold it together so that we didn't get more potholes from it. And then we restriped from the railroad bridge to Broadway with the traffic calming pattern, and you'll remember we did public meetings about that too. Showed them what it would look like and what our purpose and intended purpose was before it, and then went ahead and did that. February 21, we were awarded our first federal highway grant in the amount of $3.8 million. $1.128 million will be our match for that. That money has already been in the bank. We have already started on that project in terms of preliminary engineering, so some of that money has been spent, but we continue to put money into it in every year's budget. So currently the balance on it is still, after spending on phase 1 and 2, we're still over $1 million, $1.1 million, $2.
And Mindy, on that, in 2021, that was a 2026 call for funding, so that money comes in the government's fiscal year 2026.
Yes, it's the fiscal year 26.
Five-year lead time on getting those resources.
We are currently working on increasing the timeline on that so we can get it started a little bit early. NDOT will allow for that if we've got our preliminary work done and we're in very good shape. So hopefully we can push the timeline up on that and get that started a little bit sooner. Summer of 21, we had community open houses and presentations for all of the steering committee and master plan information. And then in fall of 21, it was presented to council. At that time, and Tony, there's more numbers in here about the total estimate, but we were estimating $25 million from the West End Gateway to Jefferson Street at that point.
And not including Hanover Hill.
Right. March 22, we were awarded a second federal highway grant. This one was $8.8 million. So $2.4 million is our match on that. We are continuing to put money in the Main Street Fund to contribute toward that match as well, but we do have a gap in funding there. November of 2022, we applied again for $8 million for a third federal highway grant, and that was not awarded. 21 through 24 to current time, we are working on preliminary engineering for phase 1 and 2 currently. Because phase 2 includes an 80% reimbursement, we always have money coming back into that fund. We have to pay for that up front, and then I submit the invoices to NDOT. They reimburse us 80% of those funds. So you'll see that fund balance change a lot, and that is why. Spring 2024, we reviewed that master plan, reassessed the strategy and the funding options because other funding opportunities are coming available. Other funds are coming down from the federal government to the state. So we started trying to figure out, because of the length of time it's going to take to do this entire footprint and the amount of dollars we're talking about, what can we do to piece things together and accomplish everything that we want to do. In May 2024, we were named Great American Main Street by the National Main Street. And in August, we met with NDOT to discuss the strategy, the approach, the capital stacking, and timing, at which point they informed us we should try to move this timeline up and get it done a little sooner. So we are working with the engineers very hard to get that in place so that we can do that. In fall of this year, we were also named the Indiana City of the Year by the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, and we applied for NDOT safety grants for the East and West End, traffic safety, and then some safety improvements at the West and Mulberry Street intersections, traffic signals, pedestrian crosswalk, audible signs, upgraded signs, and paint. So we may start doing those things a little bit ahead of paving just because we need the safety improvements. And then in January of 2025, we will apply for CCMG for the section of Mill to Broadway. Phase 1 gets us to the Incline Bridge. Phase 2 gets us from Incline to Mill. So we would like to use CCMG in January to do Mill to Broadway, which gets us all the way up to the General Business District. So I'll let Tony take over on the
Yeah,
timeline.
thank you. And I also think it's important to understand that as we go through all these acronyms, Federal Highway, NDOT, CCMG, safety grants, all of them have various cycles, right, for submitting them. Any federal highway grant, we're in 2030 right now for the next cycle. So CCMG has a different match than the federal highway, and Mindy will go into a little bit more of that too. So, and each program allows us to do certain things and not allow to do certain things with those dollars. So some will allow us to do just paving, some will allow us to do paving, sidewalk, storm, sewers, and other things. Some won't allow us to do signals. So, again, if we're doing a project, that's the reason why the capital stacking is very critical, trying to leverage those dollars as we go through a part of the community to do as much of the work as we can at one time. So we're trying to do that, and that's, Mindy and I will tell you, and the mayor will tell you, that that's somewhat complicated sometimes. So hopefully we'll clarify some of that today, but just recognize that each one of these funding sources have a lot of different restrictions and different matches associated with that. Mindy mentioned, you've all seen the master plan. It is on our website under the city's project page. Project studies and master plans for those who might want to refresh themselves with that. It was a very broad-based community process, over 2 pages of names, about a year to a year and a half. A lot of Zoom calls because some of it was done during COVID. There was a couple community open houses in the Brown Gym and library and here, but tried to get as much community input during that time as possible. This corridor from the top of Clifty Drive to Jefferson Street or to the bridge, right, is a real complicated corridor. Some of it is seen more as a road and some of it's seen more as streets. It's certainly our main thoroughfare through downtown and drives a lot of our community culture and character. And so as you think about Main Street from Clifty Drive on the hill, Hanover Hill as we call it, to the bridge, I think you can visually see that there's different segments of that road that are more industrial, more commercial, more residential, some that have a mix. And so again, how you deal with that and how you deal with each segment requires a little bit of different thought and care. So the part of the Main Street that I would call the most roadway is probably the first phase that we have a federal highway grant for. It's from the top of Hanover Hill to basically the railroad bridge, that zone. That is phase 1. We expect that to let at the fall of next year and hope to start construction yet in 2025. Again, as Mindy mentioned, there's a schedule that NDOT puts us on, and so we're trying to get on that earlier schedule and hope construction to be done by spring of 2026. Mindy, next slide. That project will be basically some deep replacement or full depth replacement, but mostly just a mill and pave project, upgrading guardrails, dealing with concrete drainage, and those sorts of things. We will be replacing some sidewalk and some curb throughout that project, but it all will not be replaced. As you look through this, and we've talked to NDOT about our strategy, we've had to reduce the scope that was initially identified in the master plan to try to accomplish as much as we can with the limited dollars we have. So one of the things that we have worked really hard on in the last 6 months or so is traffic safety and connectivity on our West End neighborhood. This roadway goes through our West End, and as you know, speed and pedestrian safety have been concerns in that neighborhood for a long time. And so we've been working with our engineers and traffic engineers to work on solutions. On the screen, you'll see that we have worked with the Elks Drive and those intersections to try to reduce some of those speeds, as well as worked on showing sidewalks that would go from where they stop today all the way to the new trailhead that would be built as a part of the Madison Hanover Connector Trail across the bridge there. We'll show you that in a minute. Also looking at enhancements there, as well as narrowing the lanes so that we know that visually, as you come around from old Dr. Canada's office there, it just opens up, and people, we know, and traffic engineers know, and designers know that openness makes people feel like they can go fast, right? And so you'll see as a part of that, the lanes will be tightened. When you add the sidewalks, that's going to tighten that stuff, those lanes, and that should help with some traffic calming. One of the unique things that has been suggested, and I think we're considering that, is a speed table. They are just just to the right of this, right by the alleyway there that people use for golf carts. So it would enhance and further reduce traffic speeds on the west end of town as they enter the residential zone. Oh, and I should say we would do decorative lighting too from that bridge to Craigmont Street as a part of this phase, and we hope that all to be done.
That west end is going to look more like the east end, and it's really going to look like it's all one road, one rhythm, one theme. It's going to be beautiful approach into town. And
we have to have we have to have all that sidewalk connectivity work done and the lighting and the intersection work done all before the federal highway project. Our local work has to be done before the state and the federal highway money comes into redoing that road. So we'll have all that done by August or so of next year.
Tony, I was going to also mention, to complicate things, there are 3 bridges in that footprint of Phase 1, and the county intends to repair all 3 of them, just like they did on West Street. The timing, we've been working very closely on the timing. We cannot be in each other's footprint at the same time. It's all federal money, and that's not allowed. So we think we're fine on timing. They're coming in after us. It may feel a little odd to get a new road and then come back in and do a bridge, but it's 2 different government units using federal money, so we're on the timeline that we're on.
Well, on that note, they've already provided us notice that they intend to work on the railroad bridge around 2028.
Right.
And that will create, a need to divert traffic because there's no diverting traffic there. It's gonna be closed. You won't be able to drive through it, so we'll have to drive around it, but that's gonna be in 2028, which is another reason why we're trying to, stage everything so that it works out with everybody's parts, that they have, along the same corridor.
Yeah, and as Mindy mentioned, we'd really love to coordinate and close the road down and do all these projects at one time and inconvenience everybody for 12 months instead of 24. But the way the funding streams come in and NDOT's procedures and processes won't allow that. So we have certainly talked to them about that and trying to coordinate some of it, but there will be a 2 to 3 year stretch here of having parts of Main Street tore up, reopened, closed down again, just because of the way the projects are going to flow. And again, the county controls all the bridges and are responsible for maintaining all the bridges within the city as well. But you can see how the lanes will narrow. We'll shift them to the south there on the bridge, add a 5-foot sidewalk that will again connect. The sidewalk stop currently just a little bit past where the old Madison Iron Works was. We'll connect on where they stop and then take those to the new trailhead that'll be just around the bend there by where that little drop off is now
Heritage
currently.
Trail.
Yeah, for Heritage Trail. Okay, Phase 2, McIntyre to Mill. This is where we get into more of the mixed uses, the commercial uses and the residential uses. We start to deal with a major intersection, Craigmont Street, that needs attention. A very complicated little corner there. I think we can all agree there, and so we know there's extra expense that's going to go into that. And then all the way through to Mill Street, again, another commercial little node there as well. Along your way, we have Vine Street and Vine and Elm. Vine and Elm Street that both have crosswalks. A couple of you, I think, Josh, you live on one of those corners. Those corners need to be dealt with as a part of that, and will be a part of this project as well, and we'll work to make some of those improvements. That we hope to begin in 2027. And again, currently we're in the design phase for that. That was a federal highway project that we did win. We also, again, as I mentioned, Phase 3, which is Mill to Broadway. It's probably one of the easier sections to deal with on Main Street. It is really will be a mill and pave project, some ADA improvements, small sidewalk repairs, and curb and gutter repairs along through that. Unfortunately, the funding sources for that require a much more local match and have excluded a number of items that won't be paid for by the state dollars. So you'll see that we have a little bit more coming out locally there to match that section of Phase 3, Mill to Broadway. We hope that to be done in Q of next fall. So between this time next year, we hope that section to have been milled and paved. We apply for CCMG money in January, and that's typically awarded in March, April. Yeah. So we'll move to be designing that with our fingers crossed that we get the funding and be able to go into it next construction season. So that project in 2025 and the West End Gateway project enhancements would be happening in 2025 at the same time. And then finally, Phase 4, that is the traffic calming on the East End. There's been a number of public meetings and input on that and discussion. The state of Indiana, this is their roadway from Jefferson to the bridge. support and made many of the recommendations that we've presented to the public on that. And they have already issued us a state permit to do the restriping project. They would typically do this as a part of their project, but it's not slated till like 2035. So in order for us to increase the pedestrian safety, we've applied for a safety grant to then match that to restripe the east end much sooner than waiting for 2035. Again, you sit there and you go, that's 10 years away. Yeah, that's the schedule and the cycle that the feds and the state tend to work is, a long time. So we're trying again to leverage some other dollars to get some of these projects done sooner. And again, that project would be done next summer as well. We would get those safety grant dollars at the end of this year and be able to move forward with that. And that project is designed. We do have the permits. We're ready to go.
This is just a summary page for you to help understand the total dollars we're talking about, where they're all coming from, how much are we required to match, and how much are we receiving from other federal, state, or other grant opportunities. So you can see it by phase there at the top. And I added the restoration phase that we've already spent through the Community Crossings Matching Grant Program for that CCMG project that stabilized the road. So that's in there as well. Phase 1, 5.5 million, and our match was 1.6. We've already got that in the bank and taken care of. The Phase 1A that we're calling it, which is West End Gateway traffic improvements, with the grant that we just applied for on that. So again, some of these include safety grant dollars we just applied for 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And we won't know for a bit on those. So again, some of these numbers are based on us receiving those grants, so fingers crossed. Phase 2, McIntyre to Mill, you can see the numbers there. That is where we have a fairly significant gap in funding there. And then Phase 3, Mill to Broadway, same thing. And Phase 4, the East End, is one of our safety grant applications as well. So if you look at the bottom, you can see that the general obligation bond that is proposed in the 25 budget would cover $1.6 million or so of that gap, and redevelopment funds and a bond that they will issue will cover the rest, along with some of the local dollars from our budget, which we always put into the budget. But remember that this is all Main Street. It is our most important corridor. Hasn't had maintenance serious maintenance in, I don't know, I've lived here 30 years and I can't remember when it was. But in addition to that, we still have other work that we have to do, right? We're going to have sidewalks that need to get replaced and trees that fall and maybe a road that needs to have a section repaired. So we have to save some local dollars for those types of projects too. So we're trying to do all of that. And 73% of the total cost of just this section from top of Hanover to Broadway is $21 million. So we have 73% of that funded with other grant monies, right? So these matches that are, it's a variety of issues. They're anywhere from 10 to 50%. Depending on which avenue we're going for. Excuse me. So I think that's just a quick overview for you. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, we'll share the presentation with you so you can digest it. And this overview is intended to let you know all the work that's happening. Again, just how complicated that corridor is, how expensive it's going to be. Price inflation that we've experienced, and this is based on estimates, so nothing has gone out to bid. That's a big question mark. The good news is there's lots of road construction firms out there, so it'll be a robust, I anticipate it'll be a robust bidding environment. But there's a lot of unique elements to that corridor that's unlike just a surface restoration. It's there's a lot of design elements to it and safety elements that have not been addressed in 75 years. Now's the time. We have a good plan. This does not have any construction other than, if we get the safety grants, some intersection improvements in the central business district. So as we get through this, I think it was maybe in Mindy and Tony and Nicole's back there is helping with this too. The central business district corridor is the hardest and the most expensive, and that is 2028 to 2030. That's the horizon we're on with that. So once we get this underway, we'll continue in finalizing the planning for the central business district, which just experiencing, the work that we did to stabilize the road was an enormous achievement that had a lot of disruption, candidly, with it.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may add, you mentioned the keyword inflation, right? So from 2020, since post-COVID times, to this year, there's been a 40% increase in infrastructure costs. Roads, paving, concrete, storm drains, electronics, all of that stuff. So, our engineers estimated it's been a 40% increase since post-COVID on infrastructure. So, again, the numbers you will see in the master plan, if we review that again, were 2021 dollars, really based upon 2019 dollars, with a little bit of inflationary numbers. But again, things are expensive. Infrastructure is a very expensive business and a very expensive project to complete. But I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Okay, I have some questions. As we're, especially as we're reviewing that whole Hanover Hill entry in, are we allowed, like I hear a lot of people suggesting, a bigger sign for the semi drivers of don't come down the hill? We have one, but it's quite small, so you might already be on your descent when you get to it. Is it possible, since we are redoing that, to consider possibly a bigger sign telling them turn left now or pay the fee? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like,
yes.
instead of keeping it the way it is, since we're doing these changes, I would like to suggest that be reviewed. Also, when we did our little touch-up a few years ago, there was a lot of complaints about in the rainstorms and the paint not being able to see the lines. And I want to make sure that we don't use that same kind of paint.
So they will all be thermo. Everything
Reflective.
that is on here is the thermoplastic that's put on with heat, like a normal road. The reason it had to be painted on that is because it won't adhere to the liquid road. So we had to paint.
Okay. And secondly, I had a person ask me today, as we're redoing phase 4, I know this is down the road, will we be able to, because I know it's the state really has control over that, and they're just allowing us to do some
Correct.
stuff so we don't have to wait another decade.
Yes, correct.
Will we be allowed to put some additional crosswalks in there, like in the St. Michael's Main Street area, like a painted crosswalk? Would that be allowed?
At this point in time, I don't think we have talked to the state about that.
We talked about it with them when they were doing the East End Bridge approach. They don't want more pedestrian activity on a state highway. Which is why we did we did other things to try to, create more awareness of the pedestrian, but they really want people to go to the lighted intersection. So it's always something we can ask, and they're going to come back in, like I said, between around 2035 to do another road resurfacing. That would be the time then, but they've been resistant to introducing more pedestrians in that corridor, because it's just it's a really wide road. The only way really to handle it is to shrink the road, and the way you do that is your corners. Tony's really fond of bump outs.
Well, NDOT's talked about that. That's probably what they will do in 2035.
Talking a little bit in jest, but the way you shrink the crosswalk is to bring the sidewalk out, bring islands out, make it such it's a smaller crosswalk, shorter crosswalk for people to get across. That's more infrastructure, and that's something to look into the design of the road.
Okay,
But
and
right
then,
now, on an interim basis, they wouldn't be interested. So far, what they've told us is they're not interested in adding more crosswalks.
okay, did you have something about the East End before I ask my last question?
Jefferson Street, go ahead.
Okay. And then this is just for my information, actually.
Yeah, no, I'm happy.
Like, I was coming down Hanging Rock the other day. This is nothing to our project. I just need some advice on who do I write to? Because I know it's the state again. But I was with my mom and I was saying, people were complaining that day about trucks being on Hanging Rock Hill. So I said, let's pay attention as we drive. My mom lives at Crescent Street, so we're, at Highland and Craigmont. When is the sign that says trucks of this weight or whatever do not? It's not until you get past Meese.
I know. Yeah,
And I said, if I'm in a semi, how in the world am I supposed to turn around at that point? So who do we appeal to? Would that be our state representative? Who would I?
An easy one is, and I think I've shared this with you, go to N.4U, and that is their customer service. They have a website. You can click on it, and you can report anything, and they are very responsive. That's a really good point.
And is that N dot number 4?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then the letter U?
Yes.
N dot
For you.
for you dot com.
I think
We
it's
have-
.com.
I think it's spelled out.
We might
Is it
want to think
.gov?
about putting that link on our website somewhere. so
You've
that
seen
when
it?
Citizens have questions about a road issue, we can highlight that, because
Yeah.
we know about it, and we have to be reminded, but
We can also add it to our list and mention, when we meet with NDOT periodically about those two issues. But the more people that, of course, report it, ask about it, obviously, the more they hear about it.
Has NDOT changed their opinion at all about a turn arrow at Jefferson and Main?
Yeah, they just upgraded that intersection and said it was not warranted. Again, that light and Craigmont Street light are their lights. Mindy will tell you that they will let local municipalities do lots of things at their expense if they aren't happy with the NDOT's approach. We are working, though, as a part of the traffic calming plan, we'll work with NDOT on the timing of both Walnut Street and the Jefferson Street light, which I think will help with the left turn going eastbound is what you're talking about. I've been caught there and, yeah. Oh, right turn. Yeah, the one going east is maybe one car.
The big issue is, there's no sensor plates in the road to affect the timing. So they just did update the light itself, but in a road project is when they would put the sensors in and create new technology. So those two intersections, unlike Clifty Drive, don't have sensor plates in them. So it's just on a timing thing. And again, they didn't want, we've asked before all these questions. They did not want to put left turn arrows in either one of those intersections. They wouldn't even put new lighting in the Jefferson Street intersection, even after we had a fatality there with a pedestrian and a vehicle.
We will be able to address more actively and more aggressively the Craigmont intersection because we'll be paying for that as a part of that project.
are we considering sensor plates for any of our stoplights?
I think the technology that we'll try to look to and see if we can afford is the technology we used at Michigan Road and Sunrise Crossing Boulevard. It's cameras that activate, and if you drive around and look at the new technology that's being installed in most municipalities and throughout the state, it's the camera technology. It's more reliable, easier to fix. They don't have to get into the roadways, and that's the type of technology, along with the audible sounds for crossing that we used at Michigan Road and Sunrise Crossing Boulevard. So if you haven't walked that intersection, you should, because it would give you the latest technology that we would intend to use at the intersections. Again, we've applied for some upgrades like that at both West and Mulberry as well, and we'll continue to push pedestrian safety at those intersections while we're still looking for other funds for the CDB, Central Business District.
On the bridges, what's the history behind the county being responsible for those? Statutory by the state?
Yeah, I don't know how long that's, but long time.
We don't want them, but
No, long time. Yeah.
Yeah. share the overview with you, and we'll also have Hannah put it on our project page.
Thank you.
We'll get back to our regular agenda, and that is to go to the resolution. And I'll give you a quick overview of that. And Gary Smith apologizes. He had a matter come up. He was scheduled to be here tonight. He's with Reedy Financial, who's our municipal financial advisor. As you know, through the workshops and also through the ordinance, we've declared our intention to issue bonds at the end of the year. This is the first step in that process, and we'll go through the financial aspect of it here in just a second, and Joe can read the resolution for its wording. But as our synopsis says, it confirms the intention to issue up to $1,750,000 in general obligation bonds as partial funding towards the Main Street Corridor project. And in the financial summary that Mindy and Tony just went over, this portion would contribute about 7.5% of the funding toward the $21 million estimated cost of the Main Street project.
Yep, this is resolution number 2024-9C, sponsored by Councilman Tevenall, and it is a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Madison, Indiana, and it's a resolution making a preliminary determination to issue bonds. Is there a motion to approve?
But do you, so if we get a motion and then we get into discussion, I'll go through the financial analysis. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'll make them, well, actually, Councilman Devenall, you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I move we approve resolution 2024-9C.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, now it's open for discussion.
Well, for discussion, I'll go through the bonding analysis. So when we went through the workshop, we were estimating that we could potentially raise a couple $2 million toward the Main Street reconstruction. And then in the ordinance that we'll be taking action on tonight, we had identified our intention to issue the bonds there with a specific or estimated levy amount in order to cover the debt service. From those conversations, we engaged our municipal financial advisor to perform the analysis. Our goal here is to raise the funds, protect the tax levy. As you know, there's about 20 taxing districts in Jefferson County. All of us have our individual taxing rates, and our goal was to not increase the overall tax rate for Jefferson County, and that has been our target. So we're not going to be able to raise $2 million, but as we go through the analysis, there are two scenarios here that are in your package. But if you want to scroll through it, I'll do the summary. And again, the goal is to not raise tax rates, but just capture additional property tax levy dedicated toward this infrastructure project by essentially looking at the district tax rate and maintaining that at approximately $3.15. That came up with a derived amount of $1,680,000 would be the debt amount, with a payback over a 10-year period, which I believe is the proper. If you want to scroll down, there's a 7-year amortization and a 10-year amortization. 10-year period, which is appropriate for a major infrastructure project like this. And you can see this analysis just identifies what room was in that $3.15 tax rate in order to capture an estimated $1,680,000. That produced about 2.8 cents of additional tax levy that's in the $3.15, but it will not increase the overall tax rate. It will generate approximately $220 some odd thousand a year in additional property tax revenue to service the bonds over that 10-year period.
So do you have a motion and a second?
And I can have Gary here at the next meeting along with Tom Pittman, who is our bond counsel, when we start the ordinance process.
Is there any other questions or discussion?
The 5% interest rate, is that where we think it'll come in at?
Estimated rate, because it is bank qualified and it is tax exempt. So we believe that we'll have strong interest from our local financial institutions for that. And if you, just as a point of reference, last summer we issued a taxable note for the solid waste improvements, and that rate was at 6%. Interest rates are coming down, and this is tax exempt, so we think we'll be in that ballpark.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Patrick Tevenant,
Yes.
Carla Krebs,
Yes.
Lucy DiTillo,
Yes.
Josh Schaefer,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
Yes.
and Josh Wilbur.
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Point of order, I guess we should also say that, just to clarify, this isn't actually issuing the bonds, or this is just
Just a declaration
That is correct. There will be an entire ordinance
Process,
process
yeah.
and a public hearing.
in a public
okay.
hearing.
Just wanted the public to know that, yeah.
Yep.
All right, moving on to thank you, council, moving on to the rest of the agenda. Are there any reports, recommendations, or other business from standing or select committees of the city council? Hearing none, I'll invite Nicole Shell here. If you recall, October is Code Enforcement Month. I mentioned at the last meeting that we provided a presentation to the Board of Public Works and Safety with regards to our blight elimination efforts. Because of time constraints at the last meeting, we didn't have a chance to do that, but before October is over, we wanted to recognize the contributions of our code enforcement officer, Dewey O'Neill, and on his behalf, Nicole is going to give the presentation.
So be nice, because I probably don't know this information as well as he would, but I'm going to give his update. 2024, he's had about 263 cases, at least when this was updated. When I looked today, between BPW when he gave this presentation earlier this month and today, he's actually up to 280, but over 150 of those cases have been fully closed out, which means either the property owner has done the work and we've closed it, or we've done the work and they've paid us to do the work. So the others are probably either newer active cases that he's done over the last couple of weeks, or waiting for lien payments.
And the other emphasis here is, since Dewey became our full-time code enforcement officer, he's managed over 1,000 cases.
Yes.
Since 2022.
So just a couple of examples of what he is really looking at. You can see the disorder and trash here on this property. Again, some trash that he's gotten cleaned up. He also deals with abandoned or neglected vehicles that aren't operable, so he takes care of those both on the street with the help of the police department as well as on private property. And then furniture that's not been tagged, as well as grass, is another priority that we address. And then in addition to that nuisance issues, he works with our building inspector on unsafe structures. So they go out together and look at the cases. Since both of them are out and about more than the rest of the staff, they're really a good pair to try to hammer down these unsafe structures and get them resolved. So we have 181 cases active, 48, well, this year. 181 cases this year that were active. 48 of those have been abated already, which is about 25%, and then we're weeding through the other 133 to see if they're actually unsafe, which means they just haven't been inspected yet. But we believe about 106 of those are not actually unsafe, that they're probably just vacant or abandoned. So just a couple examples of these unsafe structures that you may not know from the street. 505 Jefferson Street is a good example from Jefferson Street. It just looks like it's empty, but when you go around to the back, you'll see the side there is starting to crumble. And the next slide shows the back where it's open to the elements, could be open to people. So we're working with the owner to get that enclosed so that way that people can't get into it, as well as rodents and that kind of thing. This is another one that from the street doesn't look great, but the inside's even more alarming. So we're working with the property owner to try to get this abated as well. This is one of our hilltop cases that we're actively working on. Unfortunately, this property owner has been deceased for a while, and his power of attorney is also now deceased. So we're trying to work with family to get the ownership resolved so we can get this building taken care of. This property actually has a demolition permit issued for it, and hopefully will be demolished in the coming months with under the property owner. He chose to go ahead and abate it himself.
And you can't tell it, but that east side is collapsed. You can't tell it from there, but it is, the east side is already collapsed. It's a very unsafe structure. Side up against the brick, yes. That's on First Street.
Was that one a historic classed building or not?
It was, but we take safety very seriously, and that always trumps historic designation. This is another, this is a little bit older of a picture. The property owner has tarped the side that was exposed to the elements, but we're continuing to work with them to get an actual abatement plan to get the building more secured and more watertight than just a tarp. And similar with this one, we're working with the property owner to try to get the issues on this property resolved because they do live here. And then we're still working through Moody Park. If you don't know, that's the trailer park off of Walnut Street and Saddle Tree. We have gone through and inspected all of those and presented it to Board of Public Works for a demolition permit, and we're currently going through litigation on this case. So it started back in 2021, which you can see on the next slide, kind of our timeline, when the flood occurred. And just to show you kind of all the steps that our staff has to go through and the time that it takes to get this process really through to fruition when we have a property owner that's not willing to work with us. And the next slide kind of outlines where we're at currently.
And we put that there as just an example that when you have property owners who aren't cooperative, and it takes and then they sue us to prevent us from enforcing our orders. It takes on a whole new life, a lot of new expense, a lot of time, but through there you can see all the roles of, you know, the damage assessments, the stop work orders, the board hearings, the motions in court. It takes an enormous amount of time and money to prosecute a case like this. And that one's going to go to trial. So if you go back to that last one, just to tell you where we're at, you know, eliminating blight is extremely important for our community, and that is also a very dangerous location because it's in a floodplain. It's flooded multiple times. But here they had, and Joe could explain the status of this more, but their motion for summary judgment was denied by the judge, and now we'll go to trial unless there's a proper settlement.
Add a little bit to that, just to the complication of it. You know, they filed a motion for summary judgment. We were successful at the trial court level. They're likely going to appeal that and file interlocutory appeals, which just, you know, add to everything. And so it's just, it is expensive. It is time consuming, and there's just a lot going on. Anytime that you are trying to enforce something on behalf of the city that deals with somebody's property rights, it is very difficult. And I won't argue that it shouldn't be, because, you know, next to, you know, children and certain other liberties, property rights are held in the highest regard when it comes to this country. But it is it's very difficult, and the goal always is, and I think Dewey and Brian and Nicole and everybody are doing a really good job of getting out there, getting in front of things, and trying to get people to clean it up on their own, or having them at least cooperate with the city to clean it up. That's always the best solution. Enforcement through litigation is not an ideal situation.
So Joe, can you explain, like, so the owner of the park does not have now a permit to operate, right? So it's not been, the license wasn't renewed, and this was by the health department, correct?
The state Department of Health.
Okay, state. So how then does the owner continue to operate without having a license to operate?
Well, it's not our jurisdiction at that point in time. I mean, we don't issue licenses as it pertains to habitation or health or things like that. So unfortunately, that's not our jurisdiction. We don't have control over that.
Okay.
That is my understanding. Last I heard, I don't know if anything's changed over the past month or so.
The director, Metler, of the Indiana Department of Environmental Health aspect, they've been really cooperative with us, and essentially they've parked their application for a license renewal to be a licensed mobile home community until this matter gets resolved. So because they don't have a license, it's all under local jurisdiction. And for us, it's floodplain, it's zoning, it's blight elimination, it's historic district. It's a lot of elements that's packed into this one property.
Thank you.
Couple of updates on projects that are in process. This is one of our unsafe structures on West 3rd Street. The city has gone out and gotten bids to take the property down, but we're still working with the current owner and hopefully potential owner on the sale of the property. They need to go through plan commission approval to split the lot, and then hopefully it will close in November and then demo shortly after. But just to give you kind of an idea of how this structure has evolved. So that was December, this is January, and then June. It's not getting better. Spoiler alert on that. But it's still standing, which is the good news. It hasn't fallen yet, so we're hoping to get it taken care of before the winter storms start.
One windstorm away.
Yeah, but we constantly go by here and monitor to make sure that it isn't falling further into the alley, just on the off chance that it does collapse, that we can get it taken care of. This is one of our success stories. 145 Lafayette Street is downtown, kind of on an end street that you wouldn't even know it was there unless you drove down there. You can see the fire damage from a fire years ago. And that property owner did take it down, working with us. We're still working with him to get the property fully cleaned up, and hopefully we'll get that done in the next month or so. And this is one on Walnut Street, another case where it was damaged by fire, and the property owner worked with us to get it cleaned up. And then some more success stories for you. We've had a couple of projects through PACE. This one is 128 Mulberry Street. That's the before and after. That was a structure that was deemed unsafe. This is one on Walnut Street that had been closed up for years and is now a residence. And then nuisance abatement. These are all ones that property owners worked with us on to clean up, or we had our employees contracted out to do the work. And then we've had a couple of unsafe structures removed. I know this doesn't look like a structure, but that's what it fell under. We worked with the property owner and the people who had this up at KFC and got it removed. It was actually KFC who reached out to us because they were having issues getting it removed, so we worked with them to get it removed. And this is one that we hadn't even inspected as an unsafe structure yet, but it was on our list to do. And then a property owner acquired it and renovated it before we got the chance. Yes. So that's kind of our day in our life of our office, at least the code enforcement officer and building inspector, on top of everything else that they do.
Well, what is usually the most common reason a nuisance tends to happen? Is it because it's an elderly person that can't do it anymore? What do we find as the most common reasons for that?
We don't really look into that. We just follow the ordinance, and I would say probably most of our cases are rentals,
Okay.
if I had to say.
I would agree. A lot of them are vacant and abandoned structures. And we are in the process of working through that, and you won't be long before you're going to get some new amendments that deal with vacant and abandoned structures that will help us maybe tackle those a little bit better. So stay tuned.
It's been under policy development for all year.
Yes.
It's a tough one, but we anticipate introducing it in the second meeting in November. Anything else, Nicole?
No, that's all I have. So there are questions.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, and give our regards to Dewey. He's at training right now and learning how to be is it code enforcement training he's at? Yeah. Okay, good deal. We'll move on to the rest of the agenda. We don't have a whole lot left. Joe, turn it back over to you.
All right. We have 3 bills on third reading, and I'll just go through those and we can see if we can hit them. Ordinance number 2024-10, and that's the budget notice of appropriations and tax rates for 2025. Roll call vote, please.
It's Patrick Tavanel,
Yes.
Carla Krebs,
Yes.
Lucy DeTillo,
Yes.
Josh Schaefer,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
Yes.
and Josh Wilbur.
Yes.
Next is ordinance number 2024-11, and that is the ordinance fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees for the year 2025. Same roll call vote.
Patrick Tavanel,
Yes.
Carla Krebs,
Yes.
Lucy DeTillo,
Yes.
Josh Schaefer,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
Yes.
and Josh Wilbur.
Yes.
And the final ordinance on third reading is ordinance number 2025-12, and that is the ordinance of salaries of elected officials for 2025. Roll call vote.
Patrick Tavanel,
No.
Carla Krebs,
Yes.
Lucy DeTillo,
Yes.
Josh Schaefer,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
Yes.
and Josh Wilbur.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, council. All 3 of those passed. And now we have one bill on second reading, and it is ordinance number, and I would say that this is the last bill that we would have that would be appropriate for 3 readings based upon because it was introduced last, but, and this is the ordinance number 2024-13, amending section 93.22 of the Housing Discrimination Ordinance. So is there any comments or questions with regard to this?
I'll just mention this just for edification. It defines the role of the Human Relations Commission for community outreach and aligns it with the Indiana Civil Rights Commission's responsibility for actual investigation. So these were some recommendations that came from the Human Relations Commission, and we worked together on that. They were here at the last meeting presenting it.
Okay. Seeing and hearing none.
I move that we waive the rules and move this on to third reading.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules and go to third reading. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. So we are now doing ordinance number 2024-13, amending section 93.22 of the Housing Discrimination Ordinance, and this is at third reading, and we'll have a roll call vote.
Jim Bartlett.
Yes.
Josh
sponsor,
Wilbur.
by the way, excuse me.
Josh Wilbur.
Yes.
Patrick Tevenot.
Yes.
Carla Kretz.
Yes.
Lucy DeTillo.
Yes.
And Josh Schaefer.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Council, thank you. Got a few minutes to wrap up here. It's been a very informative evening. We'll move to public comments. If anybody here would like to address the mayor's office and city council, please come to the podium with your name and address and remarks, please. Seeing none, I'll move to a couple of comments here. Last Friday was the last day for our street department superintendent, Tony Sorrells. I want to thank him for his decade of service. He's enjoying probably a long-needed vacation right now, but he will come back and work for us in a part-time capacity, so we won't lose his expertise. Really happy with the fact that we're hosting the statewide historic preservation conference this week. So if you see hundreds of people running around town, enjoying the beautiful fall weather in the most beautiful city in the world, that's why they are here, and there's been a lot of work that's gone into hosting that large conference in the city of Madison, which is bringing business to our community as well, showing off the 2024 Community of the Year. We have a busy weekend of events lined up because it is Halloween weekend. Oh, I forgot. Got to put on my visual and sound here. Here we go. Okay. And anybody knows I'm wearing an orange tie today too? Halloween themed. Anyway, tremendous amount of stuff happening this weekend. Madison is going to be packed between the Centers and Sisters, the themed shopping day on Saturday, the Horror at the Ohio, the Harvest Festival on Vaughn Drive, Shock Treatment doing a fundraising benefit at Mad Paddle for Shop with a Hero. Tremendous amount of stuff happening all around town, live music and cool stuff. It's cool stuff happening. At yesterday's Board of Public Works, our new Director of Solid Waste, Streets, and Facilities, Chris Hale, gave an update on the trash container rollout. Madison Courier did an excellent job in today's paper sharing that information. So if you have any questions on any of that, look at the article or see me, but we're done with the rollout. 5,000 containers went really well. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, November the 6th, when we reconvene here. We'll have a new president and vice president. We will have a new governor and lieutenant governor. We will have a new Indiana senator. We will also have a new Jefferson County recorder. So those are some of the contested offices that we'll see on our ballot. I want to encourage everybody, go vote and exercise your rights to have a voice. But our next meeting will be on Wednesday rather than Tuesday, Wednesday, November the 6th, because we will be closed on Election Day, November the 5th. Council, anything you want to add before we adjourn? That'll actually be on November the 7th. We will do a dedication there. The sculptor, we moved the date back a week so that the sculptor could be there. That's the dedication for the Ohio River Leslie Park. And then Tony, what's the date for the Gateway Public Art feature? That's going to be in November as well?
Yes, we can announce that. Let me just make sure I get these correct. November 21st at 5:30 p.m. That's Thursday the 21st. We will be dedicating the River's Edge sculpture by Beverly Precious over on the Gateway. She will begin erecting that on November 18th. So that'll be a great week before Thanksgiving.
And we'll have the bust of George E. Baptiste installed.
It actually gets set October 30th, October 31st, in time for the November 7th ribbon cutting.
So lots of things to look forward to, as well as a future groundbreaking for Sunrise residents at Sunrise Crossing. So need a motion to adjourn?
Real quick, on November 7th, the Legacy, what time is that one?
11:30.
Yes, it's at 11:30. I think the Facebook post and some press will be going out about that yet this week.
Okay.
And will be, I think Hannah and the communications team is working on having food trucks at that event down on the riverfront.
Okay. I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Council, thank you. Thank you to all of our guests here tonight.